Alright everyone, this is the video for the MgO lab. Before we talk about the safety and the procedures, let's talk about what you're actually going to be doing in this lab. You are going to be using a Bunsen burner to react a piece of metal with the oxygen in the air around us. There are 4 safety rules that are more specific to this lab. The first is to exercise caution around the flame. You're going to be using a Bunsen burner, so obviously there's going to be a fire. And so just make sure that you're following the general safety rules for when you're working with a fire, such as no horseplay, and remembering that fire always burns up. Second, when you are moving hot objects, like this crucible right here, you're going to be heating it over the flame. Make sure that when you're moving around hot objects that you always use the tongs. There are moments where you will be using your hands to move these objects, but before you do that, make sure you tap on it to make sure that it is completely cooled, and then once you see that it is not hot, then you can pick it up with your hands. But make sure that you use tongs to move around hot objects. The third has to do with the actual equipment you'll be wearing. First, you will be wearing goggles at all times when you are at the lab stations. Next, make sure that your long hair is tied back and that long sleeves are rolled up. And lastly, make sure that when you are doing the lab and you put the metal inside the crucible, that the entire piece of metal is inside the crucible. So it should not be hanging outside the crucible. Your metal needs to be completely inside the crucible when you are doing the lab. The metal that you'll be using for this lab is magnesium, and so right now pause the video, go to the periodic table, find magnesium and write down its symbol on your pre-lab handout. And you'll be reacting the magnesium metal with oxygen gas, which is the air that you're breathing right now. It's in the air around us, and the formula for oxygen gas is O2. So what you'll be doing is you'll be reacting this piece of magnesium with the oxygen around us to create a compound called magnesium oxide. The formula is MgO. And on your screen, you should see the chemical equation for this reaction. And what you should do right now is pause the video, and you're going to take a minute to balance it so that you can have it written on your pre-lab handout. Before you start the lab, you should check your lab station to make sure that the Bunsen burner setup is on your lab station. So you should see a Bunsen burner, a ring stand. You should also see the ring that's at the top of the ring or the middle of the ring stand, and you should see this clay triangle. So you'll need these 4 things already at your lab station set up for you. After that, you're going to gather 3 objects to start the lab. The first is the goggles that you'll be wearing. You'll also grab a pair of metal tongs, and you will get a striker for the Bunsen burner. Those are the 3 objects you'll gather at your lab station before starting the lab. After you have those 3 items, you will get 2 items from your instructor. The first is going to be this crucible right here, and the second object you'll get from your instructor is a piece of magnesium metal. After you get your crucible and magnesium metal from your instructor, you're going to take it to a scale in order to find their mass. So before you use the scale, the first thing you want to do is you always want to click on 0 to make sure that it's zeroed. And once you see this star and 0 on your scale, you can weigh your item. So you'll weigh your crucible, and then you're going to write down the mass on your data table. Then you will get your piece of magnesium metal, you'll put it on the scale to weigh it, and then you will write down its mass on the data table as well. So you should have 2 different masses on your data table when you start the lab. You should get the mass of your crucible and the mass of your magnesium metal, and you're going to put it on your data table. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to put the magnesium in your crucible. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your crucible right here, and you're going to get your magnesium, and you want to put the magnesium in the crucible. Now there's a very specific way you need to put in the crucible, and what you want to do is you want to coil up your magnesium metal so that it's like this, and then you're going to put in your crucible, but you want to stuff it at the bottom. So you want to make sure that it's at the very bottom of your crucible like that. You don't want any pieces hanging off, and you would preferably not want magnesium on the sides. You just want it all stuffed at the bottom. Alright, after you put your magnesium inside your crucible, what you're going to do is you're going to put your crucible on the top of your clay triangle on the ring stand. Now you want it slightly tilted towards, you don't want it completely horizontal like this, but you want it slightly tilted up and towards you so that you can see inside of your crucible. Once your crucible is on top of your clay triangle, you're going to turn on your Bunsen burner using the skills that you learned in the Bunsen burner lab. So you're going to open up the gas valve. You're going to open up the valve on the Bunsen burner until you hear the slight hissing of the gas. Then you're going to use your striker to start your Bunsen burner. After you started your Bunsen burner, you're going to create a blue jet in order to heat up your crucible. So what you're going to do is you're going to adjust your gas valve so the flame is relatively small, and then you're going to open up your collar to create that blue jet. Alright, now a couple things before we move on to the next part of the procedure. Just a reminder that the tip of the blue jet is the hottest part of the flame, and that is the part of the flame that we want to use in order to heat up our magnesium metal. So what you want to do is you want the tip of the blue jet to be touching the bottom of your crucible. Alright, so the way that you're going to put the tip of the blue jet on the bottom of the crucible is you're going to adjust this ring right here using your tongs. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab the ring with your tongs because it might be hot. Then you want to first make sure that the screw right here is not hot. So you're going to tap it, and if it's cool enough to touch, you're going to grab it with your other hand. Then you're going to unscrew it, and that is going to allow you to adjust the height of the ring. And what you want to do is you want to lower the ring so that the tip of the blue jet on your Bunsen burner is touching the bottom of the crucible. So again, you want the tip of the blue jet to be touching the bottom of the crucible. So you might want to lean down a little bit and then manually just make sure that the tip of the blue jet is touching the Bunsen burner, and you can even move the position of the Bunsen burner to make sure that that is the case. Again, the tip of the blue jet is the hottest part of the flame, and so you want that to be touching the bottom of the crucible. Alright, so let's talk about how we know the chemical reaction is taking place. So right now, if you notice, I just started heating up the crucible, and inside of the crucible we see our piece of magnesium metal, right? We just see the piece of metal that we put in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to keep it in there, and we're going to wait until it starts to glow and smoke. And that's the reason why I told you to slightly tilt it towards you so that you could see inside. Again, please don't put your face inside the crucible. You want to stand normally and just have it slightly tilted so you could see inside. And eventually we will see the metal glow and smoke, and that's how we know the reaction is taking place. Alright, so once your metal has completed its reaction, basically what happened was the Mg reacted with the O2 in the air, and now inside of your crucible, that white powder is your MgO. Now once the metal changes color and stops glowing, you want to keep your Bunsen burner on for 1 minute just to make sure that the reaction has completely taken place. So set a timer for 1 minute, and once 1 minute has passed, which I already did before I took this video, you're going to turn off your Bunsen burner and turn off the gas, and then what you're going to do is you're going to wait for that crucible to cool. So when we heated it up using the blue jet, we got it to about 600 degrees. So your crucible is about 600 degrees right now. Extremely hot. So you will not be moving it even with the tongs. What you're going to do is you're going to set a timer for 5 minutes, and you want to keep the crucible on the ring with the Bunsen burner off for at least 5 minutes. You might want to wait even more than that though. You want to wait until you can pick up the crucible with your bare hands. And the reason why is because we don't want to transport a hot object even with tongs, because we don't want to run the risk of burning somebody who might not be looking, or you might drop it, and we don't want to be moving a 600 degree object throughout the classroom. So we're going to wait at least 5 minutes. You might even wait more than 5 minutes if it takes longer than that for it to cool. So you're going to leave your crucible on your ring stand for at least 5 minutes, or until it is cool to touch, and after that you'll be able to move it with your bare hands. All right, so I've waited about 5 minutes. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna check to see if the crucible is cool enough to touch. So I'm gonna very carefully take my fingers, make sure that the crucible is cool, and if it is cool enough to touch, I can pick it up. Now, if the crucible is still hot when you are tapping it like this, please don't touch it. What you're gonna do, again, just tap to make sure that it's cool. If it's too hot, just leave it, wait a couple more minutes for it to cool down. But if it is cool enough to touch with your bare hands, you're gonna pick it up and you're going to take it to a scale. Now, when you take it to a scale, what you're going to do is you're going to weigh this crucible with the MgO inside of it. And so when you weigh it, you're going to find the weight of the MgO and the crucible, and you're going to write it down on your data table. And what you want to do here is you want to figure out the weight of just the MgO that you made inside the crucible. And so the way that you're going to do that is you're going to subtract the mass of just the crucible that you took at the beginning of the lab from the mass that you just found. And that will allow you to find what we call the actual yield of MgO. The actual yield is what you actually made in the lab, and that's going to go in the final column of your data table. Now, if you finish this first trial early, what you can do is you can actually earn extra credit in this lab by doing 3 trials. If you notice on your data table, there are 3 rows. And so you can do the lab up to 3 times to get extra credit for doing extra runs of this experiment, hopefully to get a better actual yield. All right, so let's talk about the cleanup. The cleanup for this lab is pretty simple. You're going to keep your ring stand set up with the Bunsen burner at your lab station. So you found it there, so you're just gonna leave that set up at your lab station. Next, what you're gonna do is you're gonna get the crucible and you're gonna go to a trash can. Any trash can is fine. And you're gonna dump out everything in the crucible into the trash can. Now you might wanna tap it a little bit just to get everything out. And once it's relatively clean, it doesn't need to be completely emptied out. Like, you don't need to take it to the sink to wash it out. Just tap it in a trash can, make sure all the big pieces are out, and then your crucible is clean and ready to go. You're going to return your crucible to your instructor. And next, you're going to make sure that the Bunsen burner is completely off. So you want to make sure that the collar is closed. You want to make sure that the valve is completely closed. And then the gas valve at the lab station, just make sure it's making an L shape so that you know that that is closed as well. After that, you might notice that on your lab station, you'll see it here for me, that there's some white powders. This is some of the MgO that fell out of your crucible. What you want to do is you just want to get a paper towel and just wipe down the chemical station, making sure there's no liquids, no powders, that it's just completely clean. Again, the only thing that should be at your lab station should be what was already there, and the only things that were there were going to be this setup right here, the Bunsen burner, the ring stand, the ring, and the triangle. And again, the last thing is you want to return your crucible directly to your instructor, and then you want to also return the tongs and the striker where you got them. All right, everybody, so that is the lab video for the MgO lab. Hopefully that you have a lot of fun with it and stay safe. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask your instructor, but that's going to be it for this pre-lab video.